Hi, I'm Christien Tinsley.
And I'm Dick Cherry.
And we're here with Vanity Fair to talk to you about tattoo design. One of the things that we specialize in is creating tattoos for film and television. It sort of started back on a film called Pearl Harbor. We decided to create tattoos that looked like scratches and bruises and wounds. And so on that film, we created burns and scratches that could be applied to the actors every single day that looked the same. And from there, the company progressed into doing more graphical artwork that you've seen in XXX, Prison Break, Bullet Train, and Aquaman. We've specialized in coming up with methods of covering people's bodies with tattoos.
I never knew fake tattoos would be a job. So when I was originally contacted to do this, I was floored by the fact that you could make a living doing it. I have no tattoos, but I'm a huge fan of the tattoo culture. So being able to emulate that in any way is something that I'm really excited about doing.
We usually start with backstory. The script can explain a little bit about the character, what they are presently, but not necessarily give you a backstory from where they came from and who they are. Tattoos are a process. They're usually gathered over time.
They're adding to them constantly.
Different experiences in life dictate the type of tattoo.
Different places you got them will dictate what the tattoos look like.
Because it's not just about drawing a design, it's about supporting that character and explaining to the audience in a very brief moment who this person is.
You want to work in broad strokes with what we're creating because it's that mass of imagery that's really going to read most on camera. It's not so much these finite details that are never really the shot.
And a lot of times we don't have as much time as people do in their lifetime to think about what kind of tattoo they want. We're doing what people will take years to decide on, and we're trying to put that into 2 weeks.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. So the next phase really would be the design process. We'll start with sketches. We'll start with inspiration boards. We start with photographs of the actor. We'll do some broad stroke imagery.
And that also gives us an idea on how we're going to chop up this tattoo in the long run, because we're always thinking that he's got to apply it when it comes down to it. Yeah, so it's like you've got to make this functional.
You know, the best way we've described it over the years is it's taking a flat 2D image and wrapping it around a basketball. Like, how do you do that?
If you're a muscular fella or woman and you've got a lot of bumps in your arms, it's going to make it difficult for that paper to start to hug that.
We like soft people.
Yeah, we definitely
soft, shapeless
doughy
human beings are the best.
Wonderful.
And once we finalize that, we can decide on how this is going to be applied on a daily basis. We usually start that with getting the actor in and doing what we call a pattern cast, which is a 3-dimensional wrap of the actor, so we can create our 2-dimensional imagery from that, knowing that it'll wrap back around that individual's body. Of course, with technology, we've been doing a lot more scanning of actors.
Love that.
Behind us is Aquaman. This is Jason Momoa's body, and that becomes a lot easier for us to work with because we have the actor at our availability at all times.
Exactly, and we were able to dial it in and really take the time to get it to work the way it should work. If it's applied any different than the way I've designed it, that will change where it lands on the body. So you always have to put in some kind of negative space that allows for that little gap that may change when it's applied.
Let's say you have some smoke that's rising, or flames are a good one.
Great one.
There's space in between those flames or in between those smokes where the skin's going to come through. We call that negative space, and those are great places where we can cut without actually interfering with the image.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that we talk about internally that we don't normally share is the fact that actors adjust in size and weight before a film starts. So by the time we get them, weeks, maybe even months prior to shooting, they're still going through either special diets, exercise routines, or they're gaining weight. This makes adjustments to our designs that we've already started that we have to now compensate for, usually very last minute. It does make it for a difficulty at 4 a.m.
It'll
when
make
you're
us
playing.
twitch. We'll see it.
Yeah. After we are done designing the tattoos, we've created groups of aging tones that we can apply to the tattoo. So if a director says this tattoo should feel 30 years old. We have presets in the software that we can apply to that artwork that then gives it an aged quality. Things like the ink looks like it's bleeding a little bit more into the skin, scarring during the process of the tattooing.
Love that, because tattoo ink now is so dense and it's almost impossible to get out of your skin. But if you think of Sailor Jerry era tattoo ink, that stuff broke down and changed color. My uncle had a panther that was just a blob after a while. So they take on their own life in that skin. And depending on where you got the tattoo as well, you know, if you're in prison, your ink may be a different color completely. You're not going to have just...
And they're using tools that aren't as professional. They're literally using pen tips and electric razors to get the needles to go in. And I've always told Dick, it's like, I'm really good at doing those designs because I'm not as clean of an illustrator as Dick. So it's like, if it needs to look like a bad tattoo, I got this one. I'll make it look blurry. After we treat the tattoos, then we go to a printing process with a special kind of ink that allows it to be water resistant, waterproof. The adhesives that we use are a medical grade that allows it to hold very well to the skin. Sometimes these tattoos, when they're applied, can last days, depending on the chemistry of the actor's skin, the type of environment they're in. Like if you're working 20 days in a row,
correct,
but you're in the winter in New York, they're gonna be different than if you're in 110 degrees in Florida. What kind of wardrobe they're gonna be wearing? Are they gonna be having suits of armor versus t-shirts and jeans, or no clothing at all?
I think location of the tattoo is also something to consider, because if you're putting a neck tattoo on or hand tattoos, those are high traffic areas is what we like to call them, and they're gonna break down faster.
It's one of the most common questions I get from other makeup artists when they call and say, the tattoos are falling off the hands constantly. I'm replacing them twice a day. Well, you gotta tell the actor, stop putting their hands in their pocket. Stop, putting on jackets 5 times a day, right?
Using your hands.
Just stop using your hands. The neck is a tricky one because people are usually in collars. The oils work differently here, kind of like your T-zone on your face. So those are, like you said, high traffic areas that need a little bit more attention as opposed to something flat on the back or the arm. We've had situations where a tattoo is so elaborate and it takes so long to apply that we kind of take extra special care with that actor, because production, of course, doesn't want to go through another 3 or 4 hour application the next morning. Shows like Prison Break, Blind Spot, where they're fully covered in tattoos. These types of tattoo applications can take a very long time. We take extra special care in sealing them and protecting them so the actor can go home and sleep in them, still shower, come back the next day and get right back into work. Removal is another big aspect of what we do.
It's something you got to be really, really careful with. You can really hurt somebody if you don't do it properly. And
because the tattoos hold so well.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, of course, the actor just wants to go home. It's been 14 hours already. And so it's common human nature to want to rub and scrub and think that somehow that exfoliation is going to get it done faster. And the truth of it is we essentially soak them. You let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then it all just sort of falls off.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges for both productions' finances as well as our job is to create tattoos for stunt people. And it's not just stunt people emulating the actors' fake tattoos. It's sometimes emulating the actors' real tattoos to be put onto stunt people. For example, in Bullet Train, Brad Pitt's tattoos in that film are all his own. And so we had to recreate all his tattoos to go onto the stunt double, as opposed to somebody like Tangerine or White Death, where we just had to create duplicates of those tattoos that fit the stunt actor.
And another place that we use duplicating tattoos a lot are in commercials. It's something that you think is LeBron James, but it's not.
When you just see an arm coming into frame, or like you said, LeBron James, and you just need that shot of the lower half of the body, this is really where it plays into. Yeah.
With the stunt tattoos and the recreating also comes into the idea that we've done shirts and things like that.
So this all started back on a show years and years ago. It was a film called Torque. And I remember the producer coming to me and talking to me about the cost of all these tattoo appliques for the actors, for the stunt people. And that's kind of where the idea came from. Well, what if we could take a mesh type material and then slipped over the body to look inherently like their own skin and the tattoos? You go from a 2-hour application to a 30-second application.
It's magic.
In fact, I got an example right here. So this is an Aquaman tattoo. It's much more tan than I am, but you can see when it goes on, it just represents the tattoo and the skin tone. And as we progressed over the years, we ended up doing 250 of these suits on John Carter from Mars.
Yeah, an instant army of tattooed Martians. And same with Mad Max Fury Road. Oh, the War Boys.
War Boys,
Yeah.
yes. As an example, we have a lot of tattoos over here on the wall. We have Blind Spot. We have some tattoos from Westworld. And then these red designs, those are actually scarification tattoos for Fury Road. So these would go onto the actor's body, layers of makeup and white mud would then kind of go over that. And you would have this believable 3-dimensional scarification look for a lot of the background where they didn't have to put prosthetics on every day. Part of the idea of wounds differently than graphic designs is you have to treat the tattoo more like makeup. One of the tricks with wound tattoos is to understand how color translates onto skin through transparency. So there are certain wounds that look better on different skin types. It becomes a whole trick in itself. It's an illusion. It's a magic trick, essentially.
Well, what I also like about them is that you can get a wound tattoo to look raised using negative space. It creates the highlight, so the scab could look like it's butting up against something.
And we can show you some examples of the tattoos.
There's some scabs.
So these are
some of my favorites, the pimples.
right.
Pimples.
Yeah. If you have to do acne, you get some little highlights in the middle there, some of the skin irritation, even with scab, this is a little bit fresher of a scab. Another great thing that we can always do is we can create aging with these wounds. So we'll create a scab that's more fresh, and then we'll start to diminish that scab and make it look more brown and yellow as it starts to heal. Always kind of fun and fascinating. It's so funny that you mentioned not being tattooed, because that's probably one of the questions that I get asked all the time. Well, how many tattoos do you have?
0.
I'm like, 0. I make them so I can put them on and dress with them if I need to, and it's kind of fun that way.
Yeah, no, not doing it.
Not doing it.